Hello, and we're so glad you're here today. I'm Emily Samos, a consultant with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. I want to welcome each and every one of you and thank you for joining us today for today's GLR Learning Tuesdays webinar, Transforming Wellbeing Through Social and Emotional Development, Show and Tell 3, co-hosted with Promise Venture Studios, which we refer to as Promise for short. Promise is a very important partner to the Campaign for Grade Level Reading and has produced a series of show and tell webinars designed to showcase some of the most promising innovations in early childhood development. And I know I'm looking forward to this very full presentation today, and our hope is that you will be able to make connections that will advance your own work to accelerate early school success for children and families in your communities. And so now I have the privilege of turning things over to our stellar colleague, Kate Wild, Senior Program Manager at Promise Venture Studios, who's going to further introduce herself and kick off the presentations planned for today. So welcome, Kate, and welcome to all of you.
Thank you so much, Emily, and welcome everyone to Show and Tell 3, Transforming Wellbeing Through Social and Emotional Development. We so appreciate you joining us today. My name is Kate Wild. I'm a Senior Program Manager with Promise Venture Studio and former infant toddler teacher and public health manager. And I'm joined today by my fellow Senior Program Manager, Vance Lewis.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vance Lewis, a former middle school special education teacher, administrator, and management consultant. I notice people have already been doing this, but I encourage you all to take a moment to share your name, your organization, and where you're logging in from in the chat.
Promise is a nonprofit venture studio that attracts, supports, and connects people and capital to catalyze innovation in the early childhood community. Today's event is part of our Show and Tell series, which highlights early childhood organizations with promising innovations, especially those that support children and families facing the greatest adversity.
And let's face it, 2020 has presented each of us with new and overwhelming adversity. We are in the midst of enduring a global pandemic that has created fear and disconnection. We are engulfed in the ongoing struggle for racial justice, and there is long overdue awareness by many to the ways in which our institutions have systemically disadvantaged Black and Brown and Indigenous communities. And every day, families and their children are being exposed to severe financial hardships at levels not seen for decades. One thing that is clear in this trifecta of trauma and tragedy is social and emotional development, or SED, of children and the adults who care for them is not a nice to have. Rather, it is essential, the very foundation of the protective factors that build resilience and promote lifelong learning, success, and well-being. And as a former special education teacher and administrator, I know all too well what happens when we don't prioritize SED at a young age. I encountered far too many students who are diagnosed and labeled with learning and emotional disabilities that could have been addressed if their SED had been prioritized earlier in their lives.
Like Vance, for me, this work is personal. In my previous role as an early educator, I saw daily how nurturing children's emotional well-being allowed them to thrive. As an expecting mother, I know this is what we all want for our children and all those we love. Today's program is about embracing the essential nature of SED and giving it the spotlight and investment it deserves. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to thank our partners for supporting this work: the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, Imaginable Futures, AmFam Institute, Castle, Lego Ventures, Committee for Children, Silverbird Fund, and Valhalla Charitable Foundation. And a big thank you to all of you for taking time out of your day to learn about innovations in social and emotional development for young children and families.
So we designed Show and Tell to accomplish 3 goals. First, we wanted to bring together a diverse national community of current and potential investors and funders of early childhood initiatives. Second, we wanted to frame some of the most important topics in early childhood by bringing together the perspectives of experts from across the field. Finally, we wanted to create a forum for connection, support, and ongoing collaboration between today's presenters and each of you. Each presentation is short to help you get an overview of many exciting developments in the field at one event. Think of each presentation today as an opportunity to open a door and begin building a relationship. After each presentation, you'll see a poll pop up on your screen asking if you want to connect with the speaker. If you say yes, we'll share your email with them and they'll follow up with you. We'll also send you an email with more information about all the organizations you opt in to connect with today. We'll move quickly, so to keep oriented, we encourage you to follow along at this website. For each presenter, you'll see some key facts like their location and whether they're a nonprofit or a for-profit. You can also opt in to connect at that website, share questions or ideas for the speaker, and share feedback on the presentation with the option to be anonymous. I ask and challenge everyone today to think about what you can give through this forum, whether it's constructive feedback, an introduction, a partnership proposal, or an investment. You'll also have access to all these materials later through that same website, and those connection forms will stay open. So if something resonates later, go back and connect.
Sometimes finding agreed upon terms in social and emotional development in early childhood is as difficult as helping a toddler find the right words for their emotions. For today's event, we turn to the leaders in SED, Castle, Easel, 0 to 3, and more, who broadly define SED as the emotional, social, and cognitive skills children rely on to create strong, positive bonds with others and ultimately thrive in the world around them. Across every definition, the science tells us that SED in early childhood is anchored in healthy relationships with the adults in their lives. Unsurprisingly, a child's well-being is most fully nurtured when the adults in her environment, parents, teachers, social workers, relatives, doctors, have their social emotional well-being nurtured as well. Today, we will highlight innovations and programs that emphasize these three domains: the SED of adults, the SED of children, and the well-being and the health of the relationships between adults and children, all of which work together and reinforce each other to create better outcomes for young kids. Now let's turn to on-the-ground experts to understand why SED is so important.
Deberían saber que es fundamental para un niño, sobre todo desde que es muy pequeño y lo que absorben todo y necesitan aprender, necesitan que les enseñemos los valores, necesitan que les guiemos. Todo eso va a convertirles en grandes personas, en personas que sepan desarrollarse, desenvolverse en la sociedad actual. Es fundamental, es necesario que se invierta en este tipo de programas que ayudan no solo a los niños, sino también a los padres.
Social emotional development is not just knowing feelings and emotions, but how everybody interacts with each other. Every adult in the classroom, in the community, at home, impact a child's social emotional development. And if everyone comes together, learns together, and makes a difference together, only then the child gets a whole round development of their social emotional development in the classroom, at home, and in community.
So SED is a prerequisite for learning and healthy development, and it requires everyone who interacts with children, from parents, practitioners, and the broader community, to be effective. And the science tells us that when healthy SED occurs, a child has a better chance for positive long-term life outcomes across domains. We also know that SED skills are especially vulnerable to trauma caused by a multitude of factors, including structural racism, poverty, and crises like COVID-19. A researched approach to assess trauma is ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences. Trauma interferes with healthy SED and can ultimately lead to difficulty learning in school, increased likelihood of experiencing disciplinary challenges in and out of school, and increased risk for health problems. The good news, though, is that high-impact SED programs help buffer the effects of trauma on SED.
Exactly. And in a recent study from Columbia University's Teachers College, it showed that for every dollar spent on SED programs, $11 was saved in services later on. Yet we still have so much unmet need. 1 in 3 children under 5 years old have experienced one or more adverse childhood experiences. 1 in 5 children enter kindergarten with poor social development skills. But there is hope. Momentum is building to adequately innovate and invest in SED and create significant impact. As today's innovators will demonstrate, we are moving from a world where SED is seen as individual to fundamentally relational, where mental health and emotions are marginalized, to one where they're centered as prerequisites for learning and life. from a world that ignores the role of trauma and inequality to one that is deeply committed to confronting and dismantling systemic inequality. Today, I am honored to share with you 14 wonderful innovators who are pushing these positive changes forward, starting with Dr. Ioma Iruka, who will talk to us about the relationship between racial trauma and SED.
Hi, I'm Ioma Iruka, a mother of 2 young Black children. I was Chief Research Officer at high school. I'm now a Public Policy Research Professor at the University of North Carolina. I'm a trained applied developmental psychologist, but really, I call myself a social justice researcher. My research is focused on action and pushing for justice. We have been talking about early mental health and adverse child experiences, also known as ACEs, for many, many years. ACEs has become a proxy for the amount of trauma and mental health stress a child experiences. Unfortunately, the indicators of ACEs do not mention racism or racialized trauma. Yet we know that race-based traumatic stress presents with a variety of symptoms and has lifelong consequences, like diabetes and predisposition for heart disease, to name a couple. Through their experiences with other children and adults, by age 3, children know themselves and others in racial and ethnic terms, grounded in a society where race continues to matter. We see skin color being used and weaponized as a form of exclusion and social isolation for children and their families and communities. When my own child was 3, she came up to me, scratching her skin, trying to make it look white. And it's not just my daughter, of course. The Clark and Clark doll test has been updated and still shows the same sad results. Just Google it. Black children are particularly vulnerable to racial trauma because they may not have yet developed a sophisticated cognitive understanding or the effective language with which to process the ongoing effects of racism. All is not lost. Luckily, my daughter is now proud of her brown skin, and it didn't take therapy, just some attention. The early childhood field, including social and emotional development, claims that we must care for the whole child. Yet we lack discussion about race and racism, which ensures that children of color, especially Black children, will continue to be dehumanized and traumatized. And this is in a field that was built on the backs of Black people. It is imperative that we find a way to ensure that Black and other marginalized children feel protected, affirmed, and loved. Research shows without these protective factors, young children are not in a position to learn. And the innovations so desperately needed today don't have to come only from Silicon Valley. Most innovations actually come out of survival and necessity. And we can look for solutions in spaces and communities often forgotten and underinvested in. I think about a childcare provider, Daniela, who had to remain open to serve essential employees during the early days of the pandemic. Out of necessity and her 30 years of experience, she created her own informal pipeline and bartering system with grocery stores and other supply chains to ensure that her staff and the children and families were safe with PPE, food, and so forth. This pipeline led to connections with families who lived close by to barter and share childcare duties. She created a pod before the learning pods we think of today. It is so heartening to see parts of the early child community creating affirming and safe spaces for Black children especially. I see the early child community focusing on structural inequities and not trying to fix children and families. And at a systems level, I see efforts to support the whole child in ways that counter the racism built into the system. The Ideal Learning Head Start Network is merging what some consider programs for the white and the privileged, like Montessori and Reggio, with Head Start programs that target children of color and children from low-wealth homes. To do this means confronting racism head-on. That is, we have to ask, why are certain programs funded in a particular way with certain expectations? Why are certain children allowed freedom and thought and movement and others aren't? Why are the standards not built to ensure that families have access to the best programs rather than programs for poor people? These examples show that we have to get into good trouble, as the late John Lewis said, and challenge the status quo and fight for what matters for children. I hope that we don't need the continual beat of another Black person being murdered on camera to speak up, show up, and stand up. Part of early childhood started with standing up for justice and a fair start for our children. One of the benefits of early childhood is helping children to persevere even in the face of unimaginable obstacles. What will it take for each of us to get into good trouble?
Thanks, Ioma, for pushing us to honor John Lewis and fight for an anti-racist early childhood ecosystem that benefits all our children, particularly our most marginalized. As we mentioned earlier, a major goal of Show and Tell is connections. The poll should have popped up on your screen. If you'd like to connect with Ioma, please opt in now. And now let's hear from Kidango, an organization addressing the racial trauma that Ioma was mentioning in a systemic and comprehensive way through their transformative mental health consultation model.
Across the nation, there is an astonishingly consistent outcome attained in high numbers in early learning programs. Before I reveal it, I'll tell you a story. Scott joins a preschool program. His teachers immediately describe him as unsafe and that his behavior disrupts the other children who are, quote, ready to learn. Scott's mom is frequently called to pick him up to attend meetings so she can get on board with their concerns. Their relationship with his mom deteriorates. Scott is then deemed not a fit. He and his mom are expelled from preschool again. Expulsion. This is the astonishing outcome programs disproportionately administer children like Scott, big, black, and boy, at 3 times the rate of K through 12 combined. This is unacceptable, and ECE must make a radical shift. At Kidango, we have developed the path to this radical change. As the largest early education organization in Northern California serving 4,000 children every day, Kidango passed legislation in California to ban and address expulsion in publicly funded programs. But we knew policy-level victory simply is not enough to change practice. So we developed a solution that targets complex, systemic challenges and workforce capacity gaps that are at the root of ineffective practice. Our solution has 4 transformative interlocking components. 1, a consultation model that targets the intricate link between teacher well-being and child outcomes. Our consultants work to boost teachers' own mental health and their efficacy in cultivating resiliency and healing-centered interactions with children, families, and their colleagues. 2, a mental health framework that equips teachers with foundational knowledge of early childhood mental health. 3, a classroom mental health climate measure used to assess and strengthen the mental healthiness of the overall learning environment. And 4, a family empowerment model that elevates traditional family engagement to an asset-building guide to equitable teacher-parent partnership. We've implemented consultation in 100% of our 135 classrooms in just 2 years and expanded the consultation team from 1 person to 25 full-time staff. Our solution's impact is promising. Conditions that led to expulsion are being transformed, and we are seeing more empowered teachers and healthy relationships. We're ready to go further and share our solution across California and beyond through a new consulting and training venture. We are seeking research, technology, policy, and funding partners. Now, Dr. Martin Luther King said, "There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor popular, but it is taken because one's conscience knows it's right." It is right to usher in a movement that places healing, well-being, and transformative relationships at the core of early learning.
So you'll see that poll on your screen now. If you'd like to connect with Kidango, please opt in to making a connection. As a reminder, connections can take a number of forms. They could be following up with direct support on asks, or as simple as a follow-up conversation to learn more or provide feedback. Now I'm happy to turn it over to Marcel from the Laurie Center, an organization working to counter the effects of ACEs through their training of trauma-informed educators.
Carla is one of 25% of children who will experience one traumatic event by age 4, and 67% of children by age 18. She will end up being one of 3 children overall and one of 2 children from a low-income family who is not ready for school. Carla, Dante, and Kristen are 300% more likely to be expelled from preschool than K through 12 kids. When you consider that children who are expelled in preschool are far more likely to drop out of school and to become incarcerated, it's clear that children are trapped in a vicious cycle. Doctors Lori, Brazelton, and Greenspan founded the Lori Center in 1983 following an NIMH study. Today, the center serves more than 4,000 families each year across the Washington, D.C. region. Our therapeutic preschool program is delivered by a multidisciplinary team, including child psychiatrists, psychologists, trained educators, and researchers. The center's unique therapeutic preschool model has 4 clinical tenets: predictable structure with warmth and emotional attunement, physical and emotional safety, co-regulation with trusted adults, and caregiver support. Research demonstrates that children with more emotionally available caregivers show more competent social information processing. Extensive research proves our impact. We have an 80% success rate in children transitioning to public school kindergarten. We show academic and social gains through 2nd grade. We reduce suspension and expulsion rates, and so much more. We are now poised to replicate our highly effective model, expanding nationally in 2 ways: through a partnership with an experienced educational development group that will bring practical solutions directly into early childhood classrooms, and through an innovative telementoring program, Project Echo, that creates access to high-quality special care serving local communities across the country. The Lori Center Hub will connect with community preschools and child care providers, the spokes. Via weekly virtual consultation sessions, we will train on trauma-informed and reflective-based interventions. We are seeking to raise $1.5 million to launch the first phase of our national expansion. We would like to talk to potential funders and community partners who are interested in joining us on this journey. There is a 40% likelihood that this is Carla's future. A 70% likelihood that this is Dante's future. Kristen has a 60% likelihood that her future looks like this. Project Echo is a powerful opportunity to democratize trauma-informed best practices for preschool children and educators. With your investment, we can rewrite their ending. Let's end the preschool to an equity pipeline. Let's begin the preschool to life-ready pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel. It's so inspiring to hear how the Lori Center's program is ensuring that more children are placed on the preschool to life-ready pipeline that is so desperately needed. If you'd like to connect with the Lori Center and help them spread Project Echo around the country, please opt in now. And next, let's hear from the Power of Two about their parent coaching model that helps parents heal from trauma, in turn helping them strengthen their bond with their child.
Hi, I'm Erasma Barris Montecholo, co-founder and executive director of Power of Two, a nonprofit that brings the science of attachment directly to families. We help promote parental healing from trauma, parental confidence, and social-emotional well-being in children. Over the past 5 years, we have proven that we can help children thrive, decrease depressive symptoms in caregivers, and build community resilience. We do this by using attachment and biobehavioral catch-up, which reinforces servant-return interactions that shape a baby's brain architecture. This can be as simple as a parent responding sensitively when their baby is upset, or following baby's lead and delighting in what they're doing. This back and forth caregiving is a building block for good life outcomes for any child. We've innovated ABC into a community-delivered approach, putting families at the center of the experience. Except that it's not so simple. When caregivers are overwhelmed by systemic adversity, the consequences of chronic toxic stress can become embedded, cycling from one generation to the next. However, we work to break that cycle. Power of Two conducts 10 in-home sessions where parent coaches reinforce a parent's positive behavior, helping them reflect on their own childhood experience and becoming more responsive to their children's cues. Our community resource specialists serve as a bridge to community supports that address other social determinants of health. The social emotional wellness outcomes of ABC have been evaluated in multiple RCTs. After our program, 79% of caregivers had improved in sensitivity, and Power of Two parents learned how to respond in a nurturing way to their children. In just 10 weeks, on a scale from 1 to 5 in sensitivity, we observed them moving from a 2.0 to a 3.5. Among parents with high ACE scores of 4 or more, we see clinically significant shifts in depression rates from baseline to post-intervention. At baseline, 35% of caregivers report no depressive symptoms. After our program, 79% of caregivers report no depressive symptoms. The social-emotional wellness outcomes for children is also really terrific. Infants are more likely than their peers to develop secure attachments and learn to turn to their parents in times of distress. Children that were at risk for social-emotional problems before our program were no longer at risk after completing our 10-week ABC. Preschool-aged children also show higher levels of executive functioning and vocabulary recognition. Since 2015, we've served close to 3,000 families in New York City, thanks to our partnership with ACS and support from private donors. Our diverse team goes to shelters, food banks, daycare centers, and more to connect with families and establish partnerships with multiple organizations and providers. Our goal is to reach all communities in New York City where the child poverty rate is over 40%. The impact of the pandemic intensified parents' and children's anxiety and stress. In response, we developed a virtual model to deliver our intervention. Similar to in-home delivery, parent coaches partner with caregivers and their children. We're really excited about the potential of this new innovation. Our costs are also decreasing with scale, so new investments in our growth get even higher impact each time, especially when we expand tele-ABC. Our ask is simple. It's for funding to expand our work into communities with high child poverty rates and to support intergenerational healing and help communities thrive. Thank you.
Thanks, Erasma. All right, you'll see that connection pull on your screen now. If you'd like to learn more about Power of Two and support their life-changing work throughout New York, opt in to Connecting Now.
Kidango, the Laurie Center, and Power of Two have each demonstrated powerful and holistic models to support adults in addressing their trauma, promoting resilience, and nurturing their own well-being. They've communicated the soulfulness of this work, but I think even they would agree that no one can describe the healing and empowering nature of their work quite like the adults and children they serve. Let's hear from a few of those inspiring voices.
We tried so many things in so many places, and we live in Bethesda, so the school process took about a year to get him into the preschool. And then once he was there, he was only there for 8 days, and he got kicked out of 2 schools prior to that. It was just sad and like disheartening that at 4 years old that I already had given up on this child. So I was happy that I could try to explore this because I knew this was a great place to help them develop socially and emotionally and just with all the things they needed to do.
Brilliant Detroit has been a game changer for my family. We've been connected to so many resources that have been very, very helpful. Especially during this pandemic time, things gotten really, really rough for my family, and as a working mom, homeschooling, I struggled, and Brilliant has really helped. My girls are actually above their grade level on what they should be, and I attribute a lot of that to Brilliant.
I say things to grown-ups because they help us. They help me calm down and they help me do some work. That's what my brothers kind of mean to me. I just go to my bedroom and use belly breath.
I love hearing directly from the families and children. We're all here to serve. And Vance, I don't know if this is something you dealt with as a teacher, but while I was an infant teacher, I found it challenging to leave my stress at the classroom door and often felt like I had to figure out how to manage that burden alone. That's why I'm excited to welcome Craig Bailey from the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence to provide his expert perspective on practices educators can use to promote the well-being of their students.
Hi, my name is Craig Bailey, and I am an assistant professor in Yale's Child Study Center, director of early childhood at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, and co-developer of Ruler, a pre-K through 12 approach to social and emotional learning. At the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, we believe that emotions are at the heart of children's learning. Our research and our time in the classroom has also found that so much of children's learning is made possible by their social and emotional learning, that teachers are critical in creating and sustaining the consistency, safety, security, and trust that children need in the classroom, that children learn about emotion and how to interact pro-socially from the key people in their lives, including their teachers and peers, that teachers, especially those in early childhood, already know the importance of SEL. What they need are more supports for their own skills and practices. We've found that the emotion vocabulary teachers use and how they value and talk about emotions are especially ripe for change. Last, SEL programming often places too much emphasis on curricular materials themselves and not enough on teachers' use of those materials. The value comes not from the book itself, but from the way that book is read and how that teacher uses that book as a tool for SEL. The good news is that what we've been learning is being incorporated into Ruler and other approaches to SEL to better promote teacher and child outcomes. Importantly, though, effective and impactful SEL just doesn't happen on its own. It requires educators who are reflective and responsive to their own needs. Teachers' emotions matter just as much as children's. Yes, teachers feel immense joy and love, but also anger and sadness. They experience stress and trauma too. Teachers spend so much time helping others that they often forget to put on their own oxygen mask. Recognizing what educators are feeling and how to support their feelings is essential SEL. Little things, such as breathing, have been shown to matter tremendously. The way educators breathe impacts the way they feel. Quick, fast breathing leads to anxiety, whereas slow, deep breathing promotes calm. Second, effective and impactful SEL requires educators who are supported and comfortable with their own feelings as tools for SEL. The emotions that educators experience and express influences what children learn and come to believe about emotion. We sometimes forget how important we are in children's learning. Modeling in the early years is an especially powerful SEL tool. If we want children to talk more about emotion, teachers must be comfortable talking about emotion. And if we want children to value their emotions and the emotions of others, teachers must also value emotion. Being angry becomes a tool for SEL when it is labeled with a discussion of what happened and how to shift or use that anger. Third, effective and impactful SEL requires educators who are intentional about SEL in the same way they are about reading or math. Just as teachers align learning experiences with children's pre-literacy or pre-math skills, so too can teachers use an organized scope and sequence for children's SEL. When reading a storybook, yes, talk about that character's feelings, but we need to better train teachers to ask, well, with respect to children's SEL, what do we want children to know or be able to do? How can this story and extension activities be used as tools to scaffold children's SEL? What can children's behavior teach me about their social and emotional learning? Finally, equity is what makes SEL effective and impactful. Intentionally creating an inclusive and equitable classroom empowers young children to share their emotions safely and openly. And when children are supported in emotional perspective taking with those from different backgrounds than their own, they are more likely to experience empathy. We must value, be responsive to, and celebrate various cultures. Our classrooms need to be safe and supportive of all teachers, supporting them in understanding, communicating, and connecting across cultural, linguistic, racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Training in reflective practices and peer supports helps both the adult and the child. Effective and impactful SEL just doesn't happen. Boosting SEL in the early years requires an investment in our early childhood workforce to support them in being reflective and responsive to themselves and providing equity to all teachers, children, and families. Support so they are comfortable with their emotions and intentional in their use of SEL tools.
Thanks, Craig, for encouraging us all to take a moment to breathe. Opt in through the poll if you would like to learn more about Craig's work at Yale and Ruler. Next, we'll hear from a handful of ventures that are unlocking the social and emotional well-being of children. To introduce our classroom innovations, I'm excited to welcome Karen Cuthrell.
When my daughter was 6, she was diagnosed with depression. She stated that she was living in an emotional darkness. The doctor stated I need to get her to talk about her feelings. As a mother, I was feeling afraid because I didn't know how to do that and I did not have the tools. As I supported my daughter, I realized that she was not alone. A recent study suggests that 90% of children in pre-K through grade 1 only know 3 emotion words: happy, sad, and angry. This demonstrates that most children today, like my daughter, still don't have the tools to identify, express, and manage their feelings, which is the foundation of social emotional learning. And that's why I launched the Feelings Company. Hi, my name is Karen Cuthrell, and I want to welcome you to the wonderful world of the Feeling Friends. The Feeling Friends is an evidence-based and culturally inclusive learning program that fosters social and emotional wellness for children ages 3 through 7. You know, social and emotional wellness starts with the educator, and our professional development submerges educators in their own emotional journeys so they can see how their emotions affect their teaching styles within the classroom. After professional development, educators deliver daily instruction using the Feeling Friends, which centers around 12 emotion words, each one tied to a character, such as Hattie the happy hippo, Donnell the disgusted dingo, or Lotta Love the loveroo. Each character has a puppet, a book, a song, a poster, and an educational unit that gives students strategies on how to identify, express, and manage their feelings. And with COVID, we've developed digital resources to deliver professional development and virtual learning for students. Teachers, children, and parents, and me love the Feeling Friends. Our research demonstrates an 88% growth in children's decision-making skills and awareness skills, and an 83% improvement in children's self-management and relationship skills. Educators demonstrated 100% gains in their social and emotional knowledge and classroom delivery. We've implemented in 5 school districts with 200 educators reaching over 7,000 children. Our short-term goal is to have an additional 2,000 teachers implementing the Feeling Friends by August 2021. But we can't do it without your help. We're seeking partners who can support us in meeting our 3 main goals. 1 is distribution to rapidly take the Feeling Friends to our next 10 school districts. 2 is licensing or any other innovative collaborations. And last but not least, funding to support our operational growth. Now, I know you're asking, you're wondering, what happened to her daughter? Well, today she's the most emotionally intelligent young woman that I know. She states that the Feeling Friends were the light to her emotional darkness. So I hope you'll join me on the journey to spread the Feeling Friends light so that all children can grow socially and emotionally stronger in their early years.
Karen, I am always inspired by the energy you bring to your work. Opt in now to connect with Karen and help the Feelings Company spread their light to more children.
You know, Kate, when I was teaching, I had a number of students who had severe behavioral challenges in the classroom. It took me probably until my 4th year teaching to realize that mindfulness could help them when they were experiencing challenging situations. I wish I had the tools from our next venture, Inner Explorer. Let's turn to them and hear about their mindfulness tool that brings calm and stability to young children.
Hi, my name is Laura Baykosh, co-founder of Inner Explorer. Our nonprofit's mission is to make daily mindfulness practice as common as daily teeth brushing. Here's a true story of why it's so important. A young boy's mom was badly beaten as a result of gang violence and hospitalized for several days. He didn't know if she'd survive or what would happen to him and his baby sister. Despite this terrifying week, he showed up at school each day ready to learn. When his teacher asked how he was able to do this, he said, "Mindfulness helps me calm down and not feel so scared." He's not alone. 2 of 3 U.S. children have adverse childhood experiences, including 8 million early learners. Chronic stress creates a biological chain reaction that's hard to break. It's the epidemic behind the pandemic. Mindfulness-based stress reduction formatted programs have over 40 years of evidence proving they reduce stress and amplify learning. Inner Explorer's innovation is an MBSR sequence of practices, preschool through high school, that link educators, students, and families in a shared daily routine. Teachers log in, press play, and listen to 5 to 10-minute mindfulness practices with students. Parents are alerted so they can listen too, anytime, at home or work, forming a meaningful bond. This strategy addresses the biggest problem with mindfulness programs, which is lack of consistency. Fewer than 5% of adult users practice regularly, yet Inner Explorer students and teachers practice 40% of the time, doubling to 80% when parents are engaged too. Regular practice leads to big outcomes. Inner Explorer was the subject of 3 RCTs. Teachers have less stress and secondary trauma, students have fewer behavior problems and higher academic performance, and families report less sibling conflict and greater harmony at home, which is a great bonus. We're experiencing accelerated growth now, serving 4,000 schools and 1 million children. Our ability to scale and drive impact has put us at the center of Aetna, Skillman, and Allstate Foundation's work nationwide, as LG also funds our operation as the lead partner in their Experience Happiness initiative. Inner Explorer has recurring earned revenue as more educators embed it into the school curricula and budget. Every $1 spent on Inner Explorer returns at least $10 in direct savings, reducing suspension days, teacher turnover, and the need for academic remediation. We know that ACEs don't wait for kindergarten, and we need to go younger. We would love your help finding and funding early learning centers that can benefit from Inner Explorer. Together, let's help this generation of kids and families practice Inner Explorer each day, experiencing stress resilience and healthy cognitive development. We might just build a stable foundation for peace and justice for all. Thank you.
As Laura so eloquently highlighted, mindfulness is such a powerful tool for building emotional regulation in children and adults. If you'd like to learn more and connect with Inner Explorer and help them bring mindfulness to early learners, opt in now. And we've just heard about some interventions reaching children in the classroom. Now let's hear about innovations reaching children at home, starting with the Committee for Children.
Hi, I'm Mia Dosis, Vice President of Innovation at Committee for Children. And I know that that is an unusual title in our field, but Committee for Children is a unique nonprofit, one that really truly walks the talk of innovation. At CFC, we are not at all complacent about reaching more than 16 million children every year in classrooms around the world. Instead, we've established a division that's completely dedicated to expanding SEL beyond the school setting. We're interested in reaching children in multiple areas of their lives, whether it's at their doctor's offices or their after-school programs, or even through their media. And since we know that parents and caregivers are our children's first and best teachers, today I'm going to talk to you about reaching families. Now, unfortunately, we know that by the time children enter formal schooling, many have not received or have had access to high quality, intentional social and emotional learning. Parents and caregivers are actually more aware than ever of the benefits of SEL, but they have very little access to strategies and materials that are research-based and fit easily into the home environment. So if those of us in the field who are committed to high-quality, evidence-based development do not provide these programs and products and offerings, then others will. And as an example of this, we searched for SEL toys on Amazon, and here are some of the examples of what we found. Now, I appreciate that a good manicure can count as self-care, but I am not sure that these products are really going to support SEL skill development. So today, I want to challenge us all to look beyond traditional school curriculum, but in a responsible, research-informed way. Besides school curricula, how else can we support children's social and emotional development? Parents don't want formal training or manuals or books. They want solutions that are going to fit into their routines and into their lives in ways that are as easy as they are joyful. So, our innovation group has a series of projects underway that fill these requirements. So let's have a look at a few of them. So starting with Purble, this is a toy that enables children to calm themselves through the act of calming something else. So for children experiencing stress, whether it's from a global pandemic or just from daily life, Purble provides a nexus of calm in what can seem like a really big sea of emotions. And we're highly encouraged by the 2 years of research that support the effectiveness of this toy. Next, we have the Imagine Neighborhood. It is a storytelling podcast for kids and their grown-ups that takes us on journeys through a fantastical world that is in many ways mirroring our own. And it allows for exploration of big feelings related to current events. We've just launched season 2 after a surprisingly successful season 1, where we topped charts in both kids and education and kids and family categories, and ended up on iTunes' new and noteworthy list for 4 weeks. Then we have Mind Yeti, which is a digital mindfulness experience for kids and adults that help them learn skills for calming, focusing, and getting along with others. Over 100 guided audio sessions in English and Spanish help kids get their minds ready for whatever is next. And a recent study has shown promising outcomes for the use of Mind Yeti in classrooms. And finally, we have a program called Nurture Seattle, which is a peer mentoring program that pairs new moms with more experienced moms. And the experienced moms are trained volunteers that support and encourage and celebrate the transition to parenthood, all while building a foundation of SEL from day one. So, Committee for Children contributes significant seed funding to these programs, which have reached hundreds of thousands of children already just in this past year. Additionally, many of our projects are already generating revenue, while others all have a roadmap to revenue. So, we're looking for partners to help boost the growth of these projects, especially with support in distribution and marketing. And we are a great bet for investment because we have this Committee for Children engine with 40 years of experience and relationships with schools and a very robust school sales channel as a foundation for our work. Our organization has not only remained financially stable, but has grown significantly in recent years. Plus, every year, a dedicated portion of the revenue of the sales of our curricula acts as a substantial seed funding that enables us to get prototypes and MVPs up and running. Our team of experts has deep knowledge and experience in creating products and programs for families that are intuitive and supportive, yet deceptively simple, given the fact that every decision we make is based in research and is tested against our assumptions by kids and families. So we look forward to partnering with other visionaries who believe as we do that children's social and emotional development can be a fun, joyful, and intentional part of family life. Thank you so much for your attention today, and I look forward to hearing from those of you who are as excited about this work as we are.
Thanks, Mia. It's great to hear about Committee for Children's innovative approach to ensuring that the toys that our children play with at home are evidence-based and research-backed. To connect with Mia and the Committee for Children, opt in through the poll. Now let's turn to Better Kids, who has brought a surprise guest today, and hear about how they bring an interactive social and emotional development program to life for children using cutting-edge technology.
Hello, my name is Wisdom. I'm the central character in Better Kids app Wisdom, the World of Emotions. Teachers say I'm able to help students put names on emotions. Kids say I've helped them say sorry and how to ask for help to be happy. Wow, these are crazy times for kids, and it's confusing for young children to have big feelings. I'm here to help your children ages 4 to 8 as they go through these difficult emotions. Scientists call it emotional regulation. Here's how it works. Your child will start by playing interactive digital games and learning foundational skills like how to identify and label emotions. With each game, she will discover her own superpowers, a calming strategy she can rely on in her daily life. As she succeeds, new games and new worlds will unlock, where she will learn more complex skills like resolving conflicts, building positive relationships, and making responsible decisions. You and your child can even invite me and my cat into your home. And with AR, we'll be right there on your floor, coaching your child through multiple breathing and mindful techniques like bubble breathing, breathing with wisdom, and a glitter jar. To further practice her new skills, our app offers hands-on activities and beautiful printables that foster skills like gratitude, problem solving, and empathy. And it's a crazy time for parents too, so we have a parent board just for you with actionable parenting tips and resources. You and your child can even respond to in-app questions and create a beautifully customized book that tells the story of your child as they learn about the world of emotions. There's a whole lot of stuff about research and something Ondine calls funding that isn't really what I love doing, so I'll let her tell you all about that.
Thanks, Wisdom. Hi, I'm Ondine, the CEO and founder of Better Kids. I created Better Kids because as a child, I struggled and didn't know how to ask for help. I believe now is the time to help all kids feel better. We've come a long way in just a few years. Our subscription-based app, Wisdom, includes digital games, hands-on activities, and a full SEL curriculum aligned with CASEL's framework. Wisdom now supports tens of thousands of children ages 4 to 8, both at home and at school. Wait, what's the difference these days? I'm really pleased that this impact vision all came together and was confirmed by a randomized controlled trial that showed Wisdom significantly improved children's emotional response to angry stimuli. To accelerate Wisdom's distribution in homes and schools, we're raising a $1.5 million seed round. It's a unique opportunity for you to support millions of children with a strong emotional foundation so they can navigate the waves of this pandemic and surf those of life with wisdom. Connect with me. Oh, by the way, Wisdom is being bashful. We talk about funding all the time.
See you again soon in the world of emotions.
Thanks, Ondine and Wisdom. If you'd like to help Ondine and Wisdom introduce the world of emotions to more schools and homes, opt in to connecting with them now. And this wraps up our exploration of innovations that directly target the social and emotional well-being of children. While we're highlighting 14 innovators and experts today, we have many more ventures in the Promise Venture Network that are transforming well-being through social and emotional development. You can find ventures like Peppy Pals and Ask My Class in our innovation glossary, which we've linked in the chat.
For our final segment, we'll feature 3 more organizations that work on the relational health between adults and children. But first, let's hear from parents and educators about the impact of these responsive early relationships.
The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round. Wheels on the bus go round and round.
¿En qué manera su participación en VIP ha informado o cambiado su interacción con su niño y familia?
Nos ha cambiado porque cada vez que volvíamos con un vídeo que nos mostraba cómo lo estamos haciendo. El vernos reflejados, el vernos desde fuera, nos ayuda muchísimo a los padres y también a él también era consciente, a ver cómo lo estamos haciendo, a ver cómo respondemos al momento en el que estamos jugando y enseñando a nuestro hijo. Pero muchas veces estamos tan ajetreados, tan ocupados, que se nos olvida que quizás lo estamos haciendo bien.
And the power of two helped me to connect and figure out how they're talking. Pay attention to every aspect of a child. Their facial expression, their movement, their gesture means I need something. So it's not all about you, the parent. It's zeroing on a child, trying to communicate to you in her language or his language what I need from you.
I was at her first doctor's appointment, and Jennifer talked to me about reading to your kids because they recognize your voice and they get soothed, and also if you read to them every day, routines become habits.
The work that we do, it's emotionally and sometimes mentally draining. And I say that because it's sometimes hard to leave work at work, especially when your heart is in it, especially when this is your community. And it starts with you. They say it starts at home. It does start at home. But you have a child that's in your classroom and they're experiencing whatever it is that they're experiencing. You have to take on that responsibility. And once you take on that responsibility, it's your job to see it through.
Good relational health is vital anytime and can have lasting impact for young children, but it is especially important during a crisis. That's why I'm thrilled to introduce Neil Horan to discuss how disasters like COVID make healthy adult-child relationships even more essential.
I'm Neil Horan, a child psychologist and director of early childhood at the Georgetown Center for Child and Human Development. I oversee national centers that work on training, technical assistance, research, and evaluation, all centered on early childhood mental health and early childhood systems. And since Hurricane Katrina, I've spent a tremendous amount of time developing expertise after disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, fires, and now the pandemic. One of the things that we've learned from disasters, particularly in my role as the lead for mental health for the Office of Head Start's disaster recovery team, is that the focus is often on the immediate needs in the hierarchy: food, shelter, clothing. And mental health is quite low on that list for both children and adults. I think we need to do three things, and yet we don't. First, we have to prepare for disasters. We don't always know when they'll come, but we do know that there'll be hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, etc. What's most valuable in designing social-emotional supports geared towards the specifics of disasters, that is, anticipating how staff, children, and families will be impacted, is to be thoughtful about social-emotional development. Helping children with the trauma in recovery is going to vary by disaster, but it's always part of the planning. Second, we need to have a plan in place so that supports are developed sooner, not after the basic needs are taken care of, but alongside them, so problems don't become so acute. For example, we oftentimes see emotional issues emerge months later, a child wetting the bed 3 months after the hurricane has passed. The child who's having difficulty each night falling asleep because they've been couch surfing and he can't find his favorite blanket. But we don't train adults to notice those subtle emotional signs that are indicative that something's wrong and that something is amiss with the child's sense of routine. Having plans in place prevents a lot of the running around after the disaster in terms of addressing social-emotional development. Third is the most needed support, which is mental health consultation, not acute care and therapy. And while there's certainly a need for treatment for some, for the majority, it's right in the moment appropriate supports. practical tools that are appropriate for the situation, and how we support children right after a storm, right when they return to their school. And lastly, we need to be aware of and support adults as well as children. 18 months out after a disaster, it's often the parents and caregivers who get stressed. They've been pushing through for 18 months, not really attending to their own mental health needs. In this pandemic, we're talking about educators wearing masks and face shields. We're not really preparing educators for how to ease the stress of a child who's interacting with a teacher who looks like a surgeon. We need to think of mental health as a form of PPE for children and the adults who care for them. Disaster or no disaster, the issue is that we aren't giving communities or adults the practical tools that they need to intervene and help children with their social-emotional development. And now, with a national disaster right in front of us, our adults aren't ready to care for their own mental health, let alone then support those young children in their care. And that's why I'm advocating for the development of a national certification program for infant and early childhood mental health consultants to teach those skills and their application in the appropriate context, whether it's a preschool classroom in normal times or one coping with a pandemic. Or in a future disaster where we need pediatricians to be aware of the social-emotional needs of children. This certificate program can push early childhood systems to not only be better prepared in emergency preparation, response, and recovery, but more importantly, meet the needs of all children and families on an ongoing basis. And this extends to other parts of our early childhood system, supporting primary care physicians who are often the de facto mental health system in much of this country, supporting home visitors, child welfare workers, and others in the early childhood system to be better able to support social-emotional development. After having worked with every state, every territory, numerous tribal nations, as well as countries in Latin America and the Middle East, it's never been more clear than during this pandemic that mental health consultation has to become a clearly embedded aspect of all early childhood systems.
Thank you so much for your work, Neil, both during COVID and in pushing us to provide better mental health support for the adults and children in our community. Opt in now to connect with Neil and learn more about his mental health certification program. Now let's hear from Near at Home and their work to give adults those in-the-moment SED tools Neil mentioned through their Equity First home visitor training program.
Parents deserve to know about the largest public health discovery of our time, that adversity in childhood becomes deeply embedded into biology, impacting development and increasing health risks for a lifetime and even for generations. In the US, 1 in 10 children experience 3 or more adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, which can include things like physical or emotional abuse, neglect, and caregiver mental illness. Children who experience more ACEs are more likely to be living in under-resourced communities farthest from opportunity. So what can we do to protect children at highest risk? We can focus our support on the most important people in children's lives, parents. A healthy parent-child relationship is the buffer that protects the child throughout their lifetime. Near at Home provides home visitors with the training and support to safely and respectfully discuss ACEs with parents. Home visiting is an evidence-based program in which visitors meet one-on-one with families to nurture strong parent-child relationships, promote positive parenting practices, and connect families to critical community resources. Near at Home coaches home visitors in how to talk with parents about ACEs by deeply listening, focusing on strengths, and supporting parents to make positive life changes. Near at Home was created by and for home visitors because there had been no guidance on how to address ACEs with families. Here's how it works. The Near at Home toolkit includes step-by-step guidance alongside tips from experienced home visitors. To provide equitable access, the Near at Home toolkit is free, with almost 7,000 downloads across the US since 2015. We created a training program based on the Near at Home toolkit. This is an intensive, coached, 6-month process tested with 145 home visitors in Alaska, Oregon, Idaho, and Washington. Because of our equity first approach, we designed our training to meet the needs of diverse home visiting programs, rural or urban, large or small. The home visitors we train are more important than ever as families are coping with unprecedented isolation, fear, and anxiety. After near-at-home training, home visitors found that parents had increased stress management skills and increased hope for the future. One parent said, "That was the best home visit ever." Home visitors reported increased empathy, confidence, job satisfaction, and increased family engagement. Near at Home is now part of Start Early, formerly Ounce of Prevention, a home that will help us build on our success and meet demand for training, which currently far exceeds our capacity. We need your funding to help us scale across the country, expand our training team, create a menu of training options, and reach more families. Together, we can ensure that the 240,000 U.S. families enrolled in home visiting have the supports they need to build hope and resilience against adverse experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. Opt in through the poll to learn more about Near at Home and support the spread of their strengths-based home visitor training program. Now, let's look at another strategy for building healthy caregiver-child relationships that's embedded right into pediatric clinics, the Video Interaction Project.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Mendelson, and I direct the Video Interaction Project. By the time children start kindergarten, poverty-related gaps in social-emotional development have already set the stage for lifelong inequity. We know how to close these gaps by supporting children's early experiences from birth before problems emerge. Yet, despite clear benefit from early prevention, most children receive services only after problems arise, too late to have the greatest impact. As a pediatrician and researcher at NYU, with more than 25 years caring for families in poverty, I have witnessed this social injustice firsthand and have had the opportunity to take action and develop Video Interaction Project, or VIP. VIP is different. VIP starts at birth and prevents social-emotional problems before they happen by strengthening parent-child relationships and empowering parents to create goals for themselves and their children based on their own culture and beliefs. VIP uses healthcare to reach all parents of young children at every pediatric checkup from birth to 3 years, with an extension available through age 5. During each 25-minute session, a VIP coach records a brief video of the parent and child playing or reading with a toy or book. Immediately, the parent and coach review the video, focusing on the parent's unique strengths. Finally, the coach empowers the parent to make plans to build on these strengths at home. Parents experience VIP as life-changing, and randomized controlled trials prove it, with some of the strongest evidence of any early childhood prevention program. VIP helps parents and children read and play more together, strengthening interactions that build and maintain lifelong relationships. VIP reduces parents' feelings of stress and symptoms of depression and leads to less physical punishment. And VIP results in striking improvements in children's social-emotional development, including a 3-fold reduction in hyperactive behavior. When families are assessed 1 to 2 years after completing VIP, we continue to see these benefits, ensuring a strong foundation for learning when children enter school. Remarkably, VIP achieves this at 1/10 the cost of many other programs. The same amount of funding that provides VIP for 10 children would provide home visiting for only 1 child. The success of VIP has led to increasing demand. We've had exponential growth since we began expanding, and we are now delivering VIP at 11 sites in New York City, Pittsburgh, and in Flint, Michigan. Many locations have expressed interest in VIP, and we have developed a comprehensive implementation package so VIP can be delivered anywhere with quality and fidelity. VIP is now at an inflection point for growth, and we are seeking investment to enable us to expand delivery to families across the U.S. We invite you to join us at Video Interaction Project to give all children the equal start they deserve in school and in life.
Thanks to Alan. To connect with Alan and the VIP team, do so through the poll now to learn more about their powerful prevention-focused program at this exciting moment for growth.
Next, we're excited to feature Brilliant Detroit, a community-embedded program that brings together SED programs touching all the elements we've discussed today: child SED, adult SED, and relational health.
In Detroit, 60% of young children live in poverty, 3 times the national rate. Jazz is a single parent of 4 of those children. She grew up in foster care and has struggled with her mental health. Like all mothers, she wants her children to succeed, but getting all the quality support she needs can take 2 hours on the bus. The odds are stacked against her and her children. Because of their circumstances, they are unlikely to be ready for kindergarten or on track for reading and lifelong success. I'm Cindy Eggleton, the co-founder of Brilliant Detroit, and is a first-generation high school graduate whose family grew up in poverty. This story is all too familiar, painful, and unjust. Brilliant Detroit was created with, for, and by families like Jazz's, and as a result, our efforts succeed where others often fall short. Here is how it works. We are invited into neighborhoods where we repurpose a home into an early childhood hub. We also hire from the neighborhood and form a local advisory. We coordinate continuous evidence-based care for the entire family from belly to 8, and we connect families with a community of support, building the foundation for social emotional well-being so families thrive. All of this in the middle of a neighborhood. The first time Jazz walked through the bright orange door at one of our neighborhood hubs, she was asked, if you could wish upon a star, what would you want for your family? Jazz felt seen, and that planted seeds of hope for her family. She enrolled herself and her kids in programs like mental health support, tutoring, and art therapy. Today, Jazz is a leader on our advisory team, and her kids are thriving. In Jazz's words, organizations provide programs and services while a community is there for each other. Brilliant Detroit is both. This is why Brilliant Detroit has grown to 7,000 children and caregivers at 8 hubs in 4 years, with more neighborhoods on our waiting list. Our model works. Our kids have grown by 2 reading grade levels, and we show significant improvement on 75% of our measures, starting with increased connectedness and extending to education, health, and family support. And because we make use of existing evidence-based programs, we do all this for about $300 per person per year. We want to create population-level change in Detroit, and we can by scaling to 24 hubs, increasing well-being, kindergarten readiness, and grade-level reading. Many other cities are looking to replicate our model, and with your help, we can meet the demand. I invite you to connect with Brilliant Detroit. Let's build communities where families come first and zip codes don't dictate a child's future.
Thank you, Cindy. If you're interested in learning more and potentially bringing early childhood hubs to neighborhoods near you, please opt in to connecting with Brilliant Detroit now. And as we near the end of today's event, let's hear from two experts, Dr. David Willis and Marietta Collier-Wells, on why early relational health is so important.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Willis, a developmental behavioral pediatrician and a senior fellow at the Center for the Study of Social Policy, and formerly the division head of home visiting and early childhood systems with the federal government. Currently, I work to advance the future well-being of all young children, now with an anti-racist frame, knowing that half of the children of our next generation are children of color. And along my journey, I've had the wonderful privilege of meeting my friend, Miss Marietta Collier-Wells. Marietta?
Hi, I'm Marietta Collier-Wells, the Parenting Program Supervisor, Lead Educator, and Facilitator for Self-Enhancement Incorporated in Portland, Oregon. I've been working with children and parents building relationships with families and communities for over 20 years.
We both know that the future health and social emotional well-being results from positive, nurturing, and responsive early childhood experiences with loving parents, families, and caregivers. We call that early relational health, to focus our attention on the earliest infant-caregiver interactions. This will require a mindset shift for the field. Historically, our society has focused on children as individuals and thrown out relationships as mattering. That makes no sense. Early relational health puts the relationships at the center, then asks, how do we best support all relationships? Mariana, your thoughts?
The problem is our society doesn't think this way, and the result is toxic. Families are coming into doctors' offices with their walls up. Needed support is rejected in that state. This is a recipe for not addressing problems, harming families, and wasting resources.
So, Ms. Marietta, what are you learning from young families that you work with about this space?
Well, what we have learned is that we need to build trust. It starts with changing our thinking. We put people and relationships front and center. The tools are simple yet powerful. Body language, the way I sit and look at you, these can present an opening or put up a barrier. Not coming from above, but sitting alongside. And this isn't one and done. It takes time, commitment, consistency, and a journey of learning.
And what do you think doctors and clinics can do to celebrate early relational health and developing those strengths for all families?
Well, what we've learned is that you leverage all settings. Doctors, offices, schools, community organizations, but also new settings. The phone, texting, Zoom, high volume, short interaction settings. Essential workers, medical workers, doctors are first and foremost people. And sometimes that's forgotten. When the person, the heart stays at the forefront, not the role, that's when relationships can form and trust happens. When we're seen only in a role, voices get hushed. So we have to always keep the voices of the parents and the needs of the families in the front. Be so careful as we move to wanting to strengthen the families. Unless we have a relationship of respect and honor, we will recreate a system of mistrust, because families are coming in with unfortunate past experiences and their walls are up. The only way to break through the barrier is with an authentic relationship and hearing of their story. During this journey, there are going to be problems. There are always problems when there's something great about to happen. We just need to make sure our hearts can take this whole ride. Are you ready?
Well, certainly we are, and I think others are. So what do you think it means from a family's perspective to shift this focus to a relationally centric and trusted child healthcare system?
Well, short term, we have to get the core values and tools in place. It's the new mindset that we discussed early on. First, we need the buy-in. To get started, we need to find and empower champions for relationships inside a system that doesn't prioritize relationships. When we have buy-in, we need the right nurturing and relationship building. And this is not just for doctors. It also is for who greets you at the door. It's the whole office staff. If we do that, we create an environment for families to have the confidence to believe in themselves. Longer term, we need to change systems and build consistency. We don't need 100%. And the focus needs to stay on the relationship first. In a just learning teaching atmosphere, you teach to the student, not the curriculum. For example, Ellen Galinsky, Mind in the Making, tools validate the necessity to build in perspective taking beyond your own agenda, caring for the person, not the patient.
You know, we're in this incredibly challenging time of the triple crisis, the COVID pandemic, the economic collapse, and the anti-racist revolution. There are many discussions going on about dismantling racism in all systems, not the least of which is the child health system. I recognize that I'm a white male physician with unearned privilege. I know that I still have many racist blind spots and much to learn. You and I have discussed how important it is to have some of these hard conversations, especially when my blind spots arise between us, and to advocate for such authentic conversations with families at all levels of the community system, programs, policies, and activities is something we feel strongly about. So Marietta, what are some of your final thoughts about having these anti-racist conversations between families and their child health providers to move forward?
Well, Dr. David Willis, I know one thing, it's not going to be easy. But if our hearts are open, if we listen carefully, deeply, and respectfully, and build authentic relationships in our system of care, then families will guide the way for us.
Well, thanks, Marietta, for this conversation today.
You're welcome.
Thanks, David and Marietta. To connect with David and Marietta and learn more about creating a relationally centric early childhood ecosystem, please opt in now. We've heard from 14 passionate and committed individuals whose organizations are relentlessly working to make change happen through promising innovations in SED. We know this is only a slice of the innovation happening in this area, and we welcome connections to more programs and experts doing great work in this field. Thanks again to our incredible co-hosts and partners. And of course, thanks to our extraordinary speakers from today, who began this journey to prepare for you months ago, and who look forward to speaking with you soon. And now you've cracked open that door of collaboration a little bit further, you may be wondering what comes next. You'll get an email with more information, including contact information for every venture you opted to connect with today. The ventures will also receive your contact information, and they have plans to reach out to you. But you don't need to wait to hear from them. If you have feedback, a question, or an idea, reach out directly to these ventures. If you see potential for collaboration, schedule time for a one-on-one to talk more.
I hope you're leaving today's event as inspired as I am by the incredible work taking place across the field. And I hope that you also see this moment as a call to action to drive continued innovation in early social and emotional development. We must all come together to give families and young children the support they deserve. Now I'll hand things back to Emily from the Campaign for Grade Level Reading to wrap up the day. Thank you again. Take care and be safe.
Wow. Thank you, Kate and Vance. Thank you to all of our incredible experts and ventures, innovators. What an incredible session. Again, thank you for this incredible learning experience today. I just feel so full of great ideas about advancing social and emotional development in early childhood. So thanks again to Promise Venture Studios and Kate and Vance. Bye, everybody.
Right, we know that we are at time, so as everyone signs off, we'll leave you with the voices of the adults who provide those critical, loving, supportive relationships to our youngest and most vulnerable children.
En su opinión, ¿por qué el desarrollo social y emocional es importante para los niños y sus familias?
My son Jack has been here almost a year, and it's been wonderful. I've seen a lot of growth in him.
It's the best thing that has happened to us. This was the only place that was suitable for my son at the time that we came here.
I was so amazed at how You know, they work with him, and he has definitely blossomed in this school. I'm just so proud of him, and the staff here is wonderful. I wish that they could go with him.
I'm smiling because the mental health consultation experience has been absolutely amazing. It's given us that opportunity to regroup, to not only pour into ourselves, but it's given us tools to be able to pour into the children, but in a positive, healthy way.
Trying to get in touch with my joy, given the amount of stress that I'm experiencing every day with this job. I think that mindfulness really keeps me healthy.
What is that? This is it's a pig. What sound does a pig make? Oink, oink, oink. You're so smart. I love Jennifer. She's more than just a person that we come to for the program. She's helped mold me to become this parent that I never knew was in me.